Joining us now, Congressman, Republican Walter Jones. Congressman, great to have you with us, sir.
John, thank you very much, and what an interesting time for our world, our nation, and I'm always glad to be on your show.
Well, you're doing a fabulous job. I got to tell you, I can't believe we're going to basically anoint Paul Ryan as Speaker. This guy is the poster child for the chamber puppet donor class. He was for all these trade deals. He's a globalist. He was for NAFTA. He's for TPP. He was for giving Obama fast track. He never met an immigrant he didn't like. And now we're going to anoint him Speaker and change rules to accommodate him. I mean, for the life of me, Congressman, I don't get it.
John, I don't either. I'm going to tell you, of course, I am with Dan Webster. Thank you for having Dan on your show. He's the kind of man that should be leading the House, but also the nation. And I just don't understand. Tim Hulskamp, who's a friend of mine from Kansas, he is the chairman of our Tea Party caucus, and he's got Paul Ryan coming at 9:30. Asked me if I'd come down and sit down and listen. I said, well, Tim, I'm going to tell you something. I will go, but I'm not voting for him under any circumstances. I will only go to be your friend. But I cannot support him because he is absolutely what I see is wrong with Congress. I mean, and you touched on a lot of the reasons why I think he's wrong for Congress, by the way.
Well, I just told Congressman Whitman before, and I normally don't get this fired up about things because I try to get everybody's side on and figure out what's going on. We've also endorsed on my show Daniel Webster. I think he's the absolute right man for the job at the right time. There's no question. And, you know, if you believe that history predicts the future, and I know, Congressman Jones, you're a student of history, right?
Right.
History predicts the future. Now, as Speaker of the House in Florida, Daniel Webster took over. That House was a disaster. Its approval rating was like 9%. By the time he got out, the approval rating for that House of Representatives in Florida was in the 60s. He's an effective communicator. You look at Paul Ryan, ran for vice president. Now he's saying, well, elect me because maybe I'm not going to go out and fundraise and I have to take time off and I have a family. But here's the deal. I'm going to be the great communicator. What? You ran for vice president. Joe Biden wiped the floor with you in a debate. He made fun of you. Everybody made fun of you in that debate. You communicated nothing. You didn't win a single vote for Mitt Romney. You didn't win a single state. You brought nothing to the ticket. And now all of a sudden, somehow, you're going to revitalize yourself and be the great communicator of the Republican conservative message in America. How does this make any sense?
John, I can't explain it. I'm in the Liberty Caucus yesterday, and several of the Liberty Caucus are also in the Freedom Caucus, and this was their attitude. Well, you know, we only talking about 16 months. If he doesn't do the right thing or do a good job in 16 months, we'll change it. I said that's not the point. The point is to get started with the right man to get this House and this nation moving. And I said, why you've got a man that right now is like a tiger. You know, he's got spots. And you want to believe that he's going to change his spots once he gets out of the cage. I said it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. This is one of those things that you are absolutely right. I don't know why my side complains and uses the B word about Obama, and yet this man is going to do exactly what John Boehner did, and quite frankly, he'll cut deals.
Actually, Congressman, there's an argument to be made that he's worse than John Boehner because this guy is weaker on immigration policy than Boehner ever was, and at least Boehner got out there and raised money. I am beside myself with the kumbaya that we're having for Paul Ryan when the guy didn't even want the job. I mean, you got Daniel Webster that's campaigning for the job, that has a track record with the job, that turned around his state house in Florida. You got this other gentleman, doesn't even want to be the speaker, comes with a list of conditions. That would be like me going to your office and saying, Congressman Jones, I want to be your communications director. I really want the job, but these are the 19 conditions I have. You would be like, well, I've got these 200 other resumes, right? Doesn't make any sense.
Well, John, I can't explain it. You did talk to one of my colleagues, and won't get into that. But I don't understand why people who owe their allegiance, as all of us do, to the people back home. And if we've got a problem in our leadership, why would we take the leadership? We worked hard to get John Boehner out of office, and now we're going to put in to replace him the man that John Boehner wants. I mean, it's crazy. I sometimes think crazy. I'm in a loony farm.
I mean, it really is. I told I had Mr. Trump on my show yesterday, and I said to him, it's like you have a palace coup, you oust the king, and then you install the queen. What's the point?
I love that. I got to remember that, John. I'm laughing in sadness, if I can say it that way. You're exactly right. It perplexes me. I raised as much Cain as I can, and there are a few of us who are not going to vote for Paul Ryan. I don't know how many, but you're right. So many of those who I have respect for, I still probably say I would have respect, but they're coming across the line to vote for him, and I just do not understand it.
Well, like we just had Rob Whitman on, and I asked Dr. Whitman point blank, I'm like, you were one of the leaders in ousting Boehner. You're in leadership. You're a subcommittee chairman of the Military Readiness Committee. You endorsed Jason Chaffetz. That's fine, but you were one of the first people that have a committee chairmanship to say, look, I'm done with Boehner, and now you're going with Boehner light. You're going with Boehner with a widow's peak. I don't get it.
I'm interested. We're not going to talk about Rob, but what was his response to that?
He talked for about 5 minutes on the need to come together and the fact that he thought that Paul Ryan would be an effective communicator, of which I brought up. I said, based on what? Based on, I just thought if you're going to be an effective communicator and you ran for vice president and you were an effective communicator and you moved the needle, then I would say, okay, but you ran for vice president and basically Joe Biden in one debate cleaned your clock and made you look like you just got out of college. I don't see it.
Well, I tell you, John, the whole issue, as I've said on your show many times, who controls Congress? Not the people, but the money people up here who need special favors. That's who controls Congress. And that's what's sad about it for the people back home. I fight it every day. And I get so outraged with the people that I know are good people, and they sit here and see what's happening. Rome is burning, and they sit by and just play the fiddle and watch it burn.
Well, look, Paul Ryan is the poster child for the chamber puppet donor class. There's no question. So
absolutely. Well, let me, if we got just a moment.
Sure.
I was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, took my new chief of staff to dinner at the Capitol Hill Club. That's a Republican club.
Yes.
And Paul Ryan came in and sat with Jim Sensenbrenner, who's a member of Congress from Wisconsin and a good man. And they were having dinner. And then as my chief of staff, Josh Boland, and I were getting up to leave, on the other side of the room, I noticed Eric Cantor, where Paul Ryan had moved from the table with Jim Sensenbrenner to have a conversation with Eric Cantor. All I could, and I said this yesterday at the Liberty Caucus, I said, I will guarantee you that's one reason that Paul Ryan said he won't work on the weekend, that Eric Cantor will get all that money from Wall Street to come down and fill Paul Ryan's coffers. That's what will happen.
Congressman, let's get to the Benghazi hearings yesterday.
Yeah.
What was your general impression?
Well, I watched it for maybe 3 solid hours, and obviously it's 11 hours, but I was busy with other things, so I'd say 3 solid hours. I think after Kevin McCarthy put his foot in his mouth about Benghazi, that what happened yesterday, we did not see any type of smoking gun. And she is very good at slanting the truth, and you know that, and I know that, and everybody listening to your show knows that. So I would say at best it was a draw. I was hoping it would be more than a draw for the Republican majority on the. And I'm not being critical of any of them. I think they did a good job, but the point was nothing really came out of it that we didn't know, in my opinion.
So really no damage for Hillary?
Well, simply because I think Kevin McCarthy set it up when he said that it was all political. I mean, that was the dumbest statement. I've seen some dumb statements. I made a few myself. But that was the dumbest statement I ever heard, knowing that we were going to have Hillary Clinton before the Benghazi Select Committee, and he makes the statement on Fox that the reason that they're having it because they want to get her numbers down. I mean, John, for goodness sakes, you put the committee majority at a disadvantage to start with.
It really, I think it definitely set the tone for that yesterday, and a lot of people looking at this now more of a political episode or witch hunt, if you want to call it, rather than getting at the truth. I was telling somebody earlier, I'm a little bit older, so I remember Watergate. I remember as a
I do too.
Right? You remember that. I remember in high school watching it on TV in '73, and people forget Howard Baker, Republican, in the minority, was the toughest questioner in those Watergate hearings because Howard Baker and other Republicans at the time were less interested in protecting their party or Richard Nixon, and all they were after was the truth. And remember,
right.
Baker asked over and over, what did the president know? When did he know it? You looked at those hearings yesterday. Whenever the Democrats had a chance to speak, they utilized their entire time defending Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. Well, I think the nature of politics today, John, explains that. When you go back to Watergate, you had three major national TV outlets. That's all you had. Maybe four, but at least three. Okay, now we have all this constant internet and these cable shows and channels. What's happening is everybody is trying to think, well, now politically, what can I say that I can get some time, on the shows? Or I'm not talking about the Republicans or Democrats. The point is that you've got too much exposure. There should be exposure on these hearings, but it's just too much. And
Absolutely.
I think people are not as conscious about getting to the facts that they're looking for as to how would this play politically.
Right.
Both sides.
And the next soundbite. I want to get to local politics, Congressman. We cover over the radio a large part of your 3rd district. Tell us about your reelection campaign.
Well, John, I will have 2 or 3 opponents. As you know, they've moved the primary in North Carolina to March the 15th, so it's only about 4 months out, 4.5 months. I will always have 2 or 3 opponents in the primary, and certainly the general election, but the primary because they don't like the fact that I'm independent up here. I do what I think's right, and sometimes I go against my own party. And certainly the Boehner people who are his staffers who are not on the Hill anymore, that are now lobbyists, they are always gunning for me. But that's okay. I hope the people, when the time comes, will judge me on my independence to do what I think is right for the people of the district. Time will tell. But again, the difference is that we're going to have a primary March 15th, so that's only 4 months from now, maybe.
Now,
so it's right around the corner.
Is that going to be the same day as the presidential primary?
Yeah. North Carolina, and I think that was probably the right thing to do because of the cost factor.
Right.
They have moved everything. Primary and presidential primaries will be on March the 15th, so it'll be a very busy day for a lot of candidates.
So that means you'll have normally a higher turnout than you would have. It was just yourself and
right.
3 or 4 others on the ballot.
And I really, I've been here 20 years. They're going to judge me on my record. They know I'm a conservative. They know I try to do what I think's right, and I'm going to always remember that I work for the people of the 3rd District.
All right. Well, Congressman, we look ahead to getting more involved in that and having you on as you go through this. I want to tell my listeners that Daniel Webster is still a candidate for Speaker, regardless of what everybody else says. And we have, on our show, endorsed Daniel Webster's candidacy for Speaker. And at the end of the day, people just have to do what's right.
Well, you're right, and I'm going to vote for him on the floor of the House. I might be the only one. I don't think I'll be the only one, but I might be. But so be it. I'm voting for a man of principle that I trust. All
right, sir. We're out of time. We want to thank Congressman Walter Jones for being with us. 3rd District, North Carolina. Want more information? Jones.house.gov.